So yesterday I covered this story. Budanov's wife, I called him Budanov before I realized how I was mispronouncing it, was poisoned. And it looks like there's more to the story. Others within that department, now he's the spy chief in Ukraine, and his wife lives with him for security reasons, but not just her, but some others within that department have been poisoned recently. Now that's important. Like if the wife of the CIA chief had been poisoned, we'd be like, whoa, what's going on, right? So we kind of know where it's pointing back to. Here is the Kyiv Post explaining what's going on, and then after that, we're going to watch how Russia actually describes and discussed this on TV.
Wife of Ukraine's military intelligence chief was in hospital after being poisoned. Ukraine believes Russia was behind the apparent assassination.
Now, that seems like a fair assumption given that they're at war and that they've tried to assassinate Budanov at least 10 times since 2014.
An attempt on Mariana Budanova, the 30-year-old wife of Kirill Budanov. Russian state media has already come up with its own bizarre explanation for what happened. I'm Anya Korzun, a journalist at Kyiv Post. Subscribe to our channel for regular updates, exclusive interviews, and more explainers. Mariana Budanova has lived with her husband in his office since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion for security purposes. A Ukrainian official has said the poisoning was carried out using heavy metals, arsenic and mercury. Babel reported that the substances found in her body are not used for household or military purposes. Budanova's condition deteriorated over some time, so it is believed her food was laced with non-lethal amounts of poison that built up in her system. Budanova is being...
Okay, so that's an interesting nuance to the story that I didn't cover previously. We thought it was like an acute thing, like somebody slipped something into her food one day. But it apparently... Now, this is a worse scenario than what I was thinking before because somebody has been doing this over time.
Being treated in hospital, but she is not thought to be in life-threatening condition. A source in Ukraine's defense intelligence guru told Kyiv Post she went to the doctor on time. If it had been a week later, the consequences would be more severe. According to officials, several other guru employees were also affected, including heads of individual departments who are responsible for operations against Russia. Guru spokesperson Andriy Yusov confirmed to AFP that traces of heavy metals had been found in other employees, but declined to say how many.
So that's pretty scary that this is more widespread. So it's like attacking the CIA or the equivalent, the MI6 or something along those lines, and it's attacking multiple people within that. Now, they're going to track this down. They're going to spend a lot of resources to track down who's been doing what, but wow.
Their identities and conditions are also not currently known. According to reports, Budanov himself has not been affected. So, who was behind the attack? Yusuf said Ukrainian investigators are currently working on a main hypothesis that Russia was involved in the poisoning. Kyiv has said...
And that seems reasonable. You can't say it with 100% certainty at this point, but it seems pretty likely.
They have prevented more than 10 assassination attempts against Budanov. Budanov's influential military intelligence unit is considered responsible for several sabotage attacks against Russia that have taken place behind the front lines. Moscow has accused Gur of being behind the October 2022 explosions on the Kerch Bridge, which links Russia to the annexed Crimean Peninsula. According to the former Gur chief, Lieutenant General Valery Kondratyuk, what we're seeing today is Putin's personal revenge for the humiliations he received as a result of the actions of the Gur under the leadership of Kirill Budanov. Kondratyuk said these include not only drone attacks on the Kremlin, successful raids of the RDK on the territory of the Belgorod region, but also attempts to set Crimea on fire. He added, Putin never forgives such things. And what has Russia said? Russian state media channels have reported on the poisoning with undisguised glee.
And beyond this, stay tuned to the end because I'm going to show what actually was played on Russian state media and you will not believe it.
On talk show even invited Andrei Lugavoy, a man best known for his role in the poisoning of Alexander Litvinenko in the UK in 2006. While they claimed Russia could not have been involved in the poisoning of Budanova, Host Olga Skabeyeva smirked as she asked Lugavoy to describe how it could have happened theoretically. She added, "Was something slipped in her tea and she drank it?" Litvinenko died after radioactive poison was slipped into his tea. Russia has been accused of multiple poisoning attacks before, although the Kremlin has firmly denied the charges. In 2018, former Russian military intelligence officer Sergei Skripal was poisoned along with his daughter in the UK. And in another segment of the Russian news show, a guest even suggested Budanov is either gay or just has a bipolar disorder, and that he poisoned his own wife. Why? It gets rid of an unloved wife, and it is an excellent propaganda that can be used in any situation, he said.
That's like evil compounded upon evil, to not just do the thing, but then to malign in that bizarre way.
And on Wednesday morning, the Kremlin dismissed accusations it was behind the attack. Spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said, "Ukraine blames Russia for everything. In my opinion, Ukraine even blames Russia for its own existence."
Okay, so one of the ways that you understand Peskov is that you just reverse everything he says and you get to some rough approximation of truth.
That's it for today. Thank you for watching.
Okay, now with that being said, let's see what was said on the Russian media monitor, the talk show. Now, again, in Russia, the talk shows are primarily targeted at the older population who imbibes this. Younger folks get their news from other sources. But let's see what they have to say. Thank you to the Russian media monitor for covering this. Their position keeps worsening. It's strange that they show this kind of bravado. Among other things, we witnessed it today. Of course, I had to say something about Budanov in more detail about heavy metals. How does it work? How does it work? I'll say how it works, but let me say something else. Having observed him for the last year and a half, Budanov is an extremely vain person. He loves to be among the studio lights and the screens. A man who holds such a serious post, gives interviews on a weekly basis. He details what and how he's doing. He immediately accepts responsibility for terrorist acts. Okay, let's talk about this. Now, she talked about here. He was talking about his terrorist acts. This is the guy that
invited Andrei Lugavoy, a man best known for his role in the poisoning of Alexander Litvinenko.
That's who's talking here on Russian state media about this guy, talking about how awful he is that he does interviews. Certainly, among so much negative information, they made up the situation with heavy metals. And they're lying about it in order to do what? On top of that, with his wife, but the very first interview we see about this, his wife lives with him in a bunker. Budanov with dozens of attempts on his life, the made-up ones, of course, no other way to call them. Oh, so Russia didn't try to take this guy out, in spite of the fact that he's behind the attack on the Kremlin. Probably, it appears. The attack on the Kerch Bridge, it seems. Invasion into Russian territory since the 22 full-scale invasion began. But the Kremlin's not really interested in taking him out. It's clear that he has serious security. If you believe Ukrainian sources, now they're going to say the kinds of things that if I told you that they said this, you wouldn't believe me. But they're actually saying it, and you're going to see it for yourself. If you believe Ukrainian sources, why was his wife affected, but he was not? Does he let her taste it first and then only eat it himself? Especially since I believe it's a limited circle of people. Bucha was forgotten. Now they have, again, to portray Russia as though it fights in non-military means. It does fight with non-military means. Gerasimov made his name, the commanding general made his name talking about hybrid warfare, like that you have to be fighting on multiple fronts simultaneously, economically and politically and information space and all that kind of thing. Assuming that Budanov is being hunted, it would be done with high-tech means and not done as primitively as they say. Their army is obviously resorting to templates and fakes to get attention. Purely theoretically, how does it work? Why this old-fashioned way of poisoning? Something has to be slipped in. What does that look like? Now she's asking the guy who's actually poisoned the guy famously years ago, like, so how does this work? Like, what do? Do you just... If you believe their story, Was something slipped in her tea and then she drank it? Whoa! She's asking about the famous poison. Like, this is really sick. There is no other way to poison food or drink other than to pour it in or slip it in somehow. Wow. I mean, like, I watch a lot of this stuff, and even I am beside myself at the sheer barbarity of not just doing this, but then mocking the wife and having the guy that has famously poisoned Alexander Litvinenko, famously poisoned him, having him on this video is just, I don't even know what to say. All right. But I wanted to show you this is what the Russians are doing. Not just doing, but saying about what they're doing. Okay. What comments do you have? Put them in the comments below. Thank you for your likes, shares, subscribes, and the coffees. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine. Now go get an aspirin because that hurt my head.